wanted to make a video on food plot architecture, and it's really just kind of a fancy way of saying food plot design, but I think it describes it the best because you have to take several factors in consideration, and I want to break it down and kind of focus more on this video on how you can take a big field and break it down into smaller individual plots all in the same field to make it hunt a little bit better, make the deer travel within the plot a lot more, and hopefully get deer, more bucks into bow range for you guys. And I also wanted to update you guys on our spring plantings for this year and this upcoming hunting season and tell you guys what we did on our farm. We made some adjustments from last season. Last season was the first year that we could really do spring plantings, you know, the traditional beans and corn, and we only got beans in. It was a really tough planting season, really wet. We didn't get our, we got a $2,700 planter, used planter. It works awesome, phenomenal. We got it off Craigslist, but we didn't get that until a little bit late, and by the time everything dried out, it was June, I think, almost, when we got done planting our beans. So we didn't get corn the first year, and we ended up with, I think, almost 17, 18 acres, something like that, of beans. And the biggest thing with habitat improvement work, guys, is doing something and what you think is right or what you can do for the time being, and then listening to what your deer need and observing what they need. So at the end of the hunting season, and actually through shed season at the end of the winter, we still had probably 3-4 acres of beans still standing that were hardly touched. So we planted more beans than they could consume, and that's good. We don't want to have too little, but from that we knew that we could plant something else and possibly turn some of our tillable acres into bedding. We want to maximize our land and have every acre in bedding or food. And so with that extra beans left over, we wanted to bring in some corn that provides cover, which is one benefit of corn. And then we also put some of that big field into switchgrass. Last year, we also started a new field in our pasture that we're turning into deer heaven. In our pasture area of the farm, we had a new field, and then we focused on our bigger ag field and left one field basically completely untouched. And that whole side of the farm really didn't have any food, and to be honest, especially later in the season, it definitely held less deer. Deer and bucks definitely slaves of their stomach. I mean, it's a cliche saying, but it's definitely true. I mean, you can't get around it. They want to be within their good afternoon food source, within a good distance of it. So we also planted that field. We ended up with 11 acres of corn and 11 acres of beans. One consideration that we wanted to take was in every destination area, destination plot, they're usually over 5 acres-ish. We have a lot of open ground on our farm. We wanted the deer to have, basically we'll break it down into two categories, grains and greens. And within grains, we want to have beans and corn this year, so they have all the options that they need and they want at the specific time of the year. And greens, we're going to have perennials and we're going to have fall planted annuals. And in each location, we want to have a little bit of each, so that every single day, no matter throughout any time of the fall, any time of the hunting season, when acorns are dropping or beans are turning yellow and they're getting off of beans, maybe the clover is less palatable and brassica start to become more palatable, stuff like that. We want to have them be going to the same location so that the deer are more patternable and that we can hunt them easier. So we wanted to combine all the things that they need into each individual destination plot. And in order to break down these big, huge plots, we wanted to have big, long lines of movement leading basically directly to our blinds and to our stand sites. So in our biggest field, for example, I think it's actually over 20 acres of tillable. Like I said, we also put in some more switchgrass areas, but there's beans, and then there's corn, and then there's beans, and then there's corn, and it's all leading right to the main blind that we can access it the best from. It's one of our best spots. It's where Trevor killed his big buck last year, and we can get in and out of it really easily, see a bunch of the deer, scout really well, and also now with all those lines of movement and that alfalfa clover mix right in front of the blind, we'll have a scrape tree right out front. It's just going to lead to so many deer just cruising. Even during the rut with standing corn, it's going to create more edge within the food plot. And that's one thing Dad said right away, is we need to mix corn and beans to just create more edge in the food plot. And even if you don't want to plant corn, you can plant like a plot screen mix just to create more edge, and deer are going to naturally stick to the edge and keep following it. Another thing that's going to do is actually block some deer from each other. I don't know if you've ever heard of social stress, but people kind of disagree sometimes on whether it's actually a factor, but it's pretty well documented that Deer can, at least especially some deer and older deer, like to be isolated. They don't want to be around a whole bunch of other deer, and having too many deer in one area, which can definitely be a problem, especially if you're planting a lot of food. You have to keep up on the doe management. If you get too many deer, then it creates a lot of social stress, and not only do the big bucks and the more mature bucks not like that, but there's actually some research to show that they're not going to get as big of racks. A lot of times right after a big EHD outbreak, when a lot of deer die, the next year there'll be like a world record class buck that gets shot out of that area, and it's because they're just not competing for food, not competing for cover, not competing for any of these resources. So splitting these up, this big field, splitting it up into smaller sections is going to limit that social stress and help the deer herd out. One other thing that's honestly a consequence of this, a good consequence, is now that we have basically 3 big destination areas where they can get their grain and their greens every afternoon, and they can bed within a couple hundred yards of it. We have 3 basic areas, and there's 3 of us that hunt the farm mainly, Dad, Trevor, and I. So now that we have all of these areas, and we have good wind options for most good days, north winds, we can all go hunt the farm if we choose to and cover it really well. And we all basically are dealt with the same cards. Deer could show up at any time, and they basically get the same options and the best options at every location. So it makes the farm hunt a lot bigger now that we're basically maximizing every acre. You can't make your plots so attractive that you can't hunt your land. So for example, that field that we just started establishing, the one a little bit closer on the other side of the farm that we have to walk in to get to, we actually have to get by that field to hunt the bigger field in a couple of the stand locations. If you make that so attractive that you can never go in and out without spooking deer, all you're going to be doing is hurting your land. So you can't talk about food plots and making it attractive without first saying that you have to plan your access around them and have good access. So we also have switchgrass screens and basically planted corn in certain areas to also block the view. So you got to always keep that in consideration. But everything's doing really well. A lot of the B-roll footage that you're seeing shot was shot 2 weeks ago, so everything's even better now. Some of the first year areas that we planted were struggling with weeds a lot. It's the never-ending battle on weeds, especially when you're a hobby farmer. But everything's looking really well, and as long as Mother Nature doesn't shut the faucet off, I'm pretty confident that we're going to have great plots and hold more deer and more bucks than ever this fall. So you guys can apply this to any of your own land or any of your permission ground, especially if you have options to plant food plots. And the biggest takeaway for a lot of people is going to be taking a big field and breaking it down into smaller sections so that you can hunt it better and be more effective, get more deer in bow range or just closer gunshots. And if you need help with any of this, we do offer consulting on our website, both online and in person. If you reach out to us, we're probably one of the more affordable on the market, but we just love doing it. I mean, we absolutely love this stuff and can't get enough of it. So if you need help, even just ask general questions in the comments. We answer every single one of them, and just let us know what you need help with, or we can bounce ideas off each other. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you liked it, and share it with your friends.